Greetings, Benjamin J. from Ben's Trains with another in the series. Well, I mounted that rebuilt motor in this old shell. As you can see, this is in fair condition at best. There's no real physical damage to it, but as you can see, it is quite filthy. Anyway, I pulled this out from under the bench and put that motor in it. It's going to be the first trip around the rail, so I wanted to do a video to document it. As I always stress, if you have the parts, you can fix anything that Marx made. Now, this motor was an absolute wreck, and just swapped out some parts, a wheel, push rod, brush plate, brush spring, main contactor, and it's up and running. Anyway, I've got this on the fourth rail, if counting from the center out. Just want to do a video. This is going to be its first trip around the rail in a shell. So, just want to do a quick video on this to document it. As you see, that's running at 50% power. Let me turn it down a bit. And it's running just absolutely perfectly, pulling two lighted cars, a total of, I think there's 16 cars on the consist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now that counts as 2, so call it 15. So, a Marx motor, single reduction motor built from parts. Like I said, this was just an absolute wreck. Been under the bench or in the parts box for, I don't know, five months, something like that. And finally got around to doing something with it. And I got some parts, so I figured I would spend an hour or so working on this motor, get it up and running, and dropped it into this 400 shell, and here it is. First trip around the rail as a finished locomotive. So like I said, I dropped these motors into these plastic shells, put them up on the shelf, and when a locomotive comes in with a steel shell that has a bad motor, I just grab one of these motors, do a motor swap, and the new steel shell locomotive is up and running. But putting these rebuilt motors in these plastic shells is a great way to keep them from getting damaged, and plus you can run them this way. As you see, that's running nice and smooth, constant speed all the way around the rail. That's right at 50% power. So it runs nice, it didn't cost anything, and I had the fun of bringing it back to life. Now, this old motor was a wreck. I had to put a lot of parts on it, but it's up and running. And the E-unit works. That's the nice thing about it. And best of all, it didn't cost me anything. And the parts that I didn't use go into the parts box and will go towards getting another motor running. So like I said, if you have a wheel puller and a way to press the wheels back on, you can repair any Marx motor that you find. And usually in 10 minutes, if you have the parts, regardless of what the part is. If it needs a main contactor, a brush plate, a brush spring, the brushes themselves, a gear, a wheel, a drive rod, doesn't make any difference. It's about 10 minutes to replace almost anything on one of these locomotives. It's really simple. And plus, once it's finished, you have the satisfaction of knowing you're the one that resurrected this thing from the dead. So as you see, this is running just perfectly. And it has a working E-unit. And best of all, it's just made out of junk. So if you have to spend the 10, 15 bucks to buy a junk locomotive, do it. The parts are well worth the price, and out of one of these motors, you can usually fix 5 or 6 other ones, depending on what they need, of course. But there's lots of parts in this one motor that can go towards fixing lots of other motors. And then once you have the ability to repair these things, these locomotives you can find really cheap, a lot of them are advertised, does not run. Well, it may not run when you get it, but I guarantee you it'll run after you work on it. There's really nothing complex about this. It's really straightforward and simple. But you have to really want to do it. You're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to have to buy some tools to do it with. but I think it's well worth the expenditure. And once you have a wheel puller, you can fix almost anything. And as you see, this is just running perfectly. So it went from a junk or motor out of the parts box to being a running locomotive in a matter of about half an hour. And plus you have the fun of doing it. That's the neat thing about it. And after it's repaired, you can just sit back and watch it run. So a lot of fun, really a lot of satisfaction doing this as well, because you're the one that saved it. And it's nice to be able to buy something on eBay that does not run, spend a few minutes on it, and then sit back and watch it running around your layout. So another motor added to the collection. Like I said, I just put them in these plastic shells, put them up on the shelf, and then when a nice locomotive comes in that needs a motor, I can just grab one of these things, do a motor swap, the new locomotive is up and running, repair the old motor, and you're back in business. It's really, really simple to do this. And it's a lot of fun to do it. So as you see, this is running absolutely perfectly. Good constant speed all the way around the rail. So I gotta say it, don't overlook the junk. And if you can't fix it, use it for parts to fix something else. But once you have the parts, you can fix almost anything you can find. So just a quick video on repairing an old Marx locomotive, or in this case a Marx motor, built almost entirely out of parts. And it has two mismatched push rods. I'm also missing one screw. And I added a traction tire to it. I had to replace the brush plate, one brush spring, the main contactor, the brushes of course, and one wheel. But as you can see, it's up and running and doesn't look bad. So just dropped it into this 400 shell. Like I said, when something comes in that needs a motor, I just grab one of these off the shelf, grab the motor out of it, stick it in the new locomotive, take the old motor and repair it. So it runs nice, it looks good, more than acceptable, and this locomotive is made out of junk. Hard to beat that. Anyway, I just want to do a follow-up video. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, BENZTRAINZ@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.